2022 Family and Services Connection Support legislation. Many families face multiple barriers navigating California's existing support systems to receive care and services. Having to navigate bias, complex systems that lack coordination with other agencies and organizations that often do not receive consistent funding prevent many from accessing the services they need and leaves gaps in support. Finding ways to make it easier for people to navigate systems and receive the care and support they need is why I introduce this Family and Services Connection Support Bill package. The Family Finding and Engagement Act is the first bill in the package that seeks to streamline the efforts and funding streams to implement family finding and engagements, also known as SB 1091. The second bill of the Family and Services Connection Support Bill package is the Equitable Access to Services Act, which will help individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families more easily navigate the fair hearing process. The last bill of the Family Services Connection Support package pertains to the Family Urgent Response System. This bill will expand the definition of who is a current or former foster youth, so those youth in a transition period remain eligible for FERS, ensuring that youth remain connected to the services they desperately need, also known as SB 1090. To further discuss these bills and take a deeper dive in how they've impacted Californians all across the state, I have a few special guests with me today. Kathy Sunderland is a director of the County Welfare Directors Association, and she is going to be talking to us about the Family Urgent Response System Cleanup Bill. Then we have Chris Stoner-Mertz is the Chief Executive Officer of the California Alliance of Child and Family Services, and she will be answering some questions about the Family Finding and Engagement Act. Also with us is Elizabeth Gomez, who is the Director of the Integrated Community Collaborative. We'll be discussing her experiences and some of the problems that our third bill seeks to resolve. Thank you all for joining me this morning. Let's start this off with some questions. For Chris, how many more foster youth do you estimate will be receiving family finding and engagement services because of this bill?
Thank you so much, Senator, for having me today and the opportunity to talk about this very important effort. There are over 12,000 children in foster care who are 17 years or younger, who have been in foster care for more than 24 months, who are not currently living with a relative and are no longer in reunification services. It's about 20% of the total number of children in foster care. And so we are really wanting to target this group of children, these 12,000 plus, in order to focus family finding and engagement, ensure that they're connected to family and kin, and help to move them further into relationship and perhaps even living situations with family.
Thank you. And I have an additional question for you. What potential does family finding and engagement have to improve outcomes for youth of color, youth who identify as LGBTQ, and youth who have been in foster care for extended periods of time?
Well, we know that the representation of youth of color and LGBTQ plus youth are overrepresented in the foster care system. And so this effort to really engage youth, and particularly those older youth who have been in foster care for extended periods of time, it's critical to ensure that they're getting these services to connect them to their communities and help them stabilize and create long-term relationships with relatives and other significant adults in their lives, so that they're going into adulthood with the supports that they need. So we expect this will absolutely have an impact on outcomes for LGBTQ youth and youth of color. We really want to ensure that we are moving youth into family whenever possible. And even if they can't live with family, we want them to have the same connections that all of the rest of us do, right? You need to know where you come from and feel a sense of belonging.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. And our next question is for Kathy. Kathy, can you please share a bit about the success of FERS with us and how it has been positively impacting current foster youth?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Senator. The FERS program was implemented starting just last year, and I think we weren't sure how it would really function during a pandemic, but we've been really heartened about the response. FERS is working. Since its implementation, FERS has provided current and former foster youth and their caregivers with immediate trauma-informed support when they need it. This has reduced hospitalizations, law enforcement contact, and placement in congregate care facilities versus the family-based care that we're really seeking to support with FERS. The program has helped to preserve placements and strengthen relationships between youth and caregivers. I'll just give an example from Fresno County, which has been seeing a lot of success. In just under a year, they've received 10 calls to the FERS hotline from Fresno caregivers or youth, and staff report the program is accomplishing what it set out to do: calm the youth, calm the situation, de-escalate, and ensure that resources are made available and actually provided to the youth and the families who are caring for them. There were 4 referrals in January, which is the highest in Fresno for the month since they started. And they already have 1 referral in February for services. And I'll say that statewide, the hotlines received almost 1,600 calls between July and December 2021. And of those calls, 284 or 18% were referred on to a mobile response. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. December was the highest month so far, in fact, with 346 calls, and 19% were referred to a mobile response. So what I think we're seeing here is that the need is out there, that youth and caregivers are learning about the program and are accessing it and then receiving services. And at times the situation isn't just something that can be handled through a hotline, through a trained worker on that other end of the line, but can also be helped through an in-person response that happens 24/7 in every county.
Thank you, Kathy. And how is FERS intended to support families with former foster youth?
Great question. So the program is really designed to have some different layers of services and support depending on the situation that caused the youth or caregiver to call the hotline. So first, as I mentioned, it's 24/7. It's a toll-free hotline that's staffed by trained professionals who understand trauma, and they also understand the foster care system, which is pretty unique. Not everyone really understands what a youth or former foster youth in this case may be going through. So anything that's happening with them, whether they're having a conflict with a parent, a relative, a roommate, they need some support, they can call that number and talk to someone. And importantly, they can also access the hotline via text, online chat, and email. So we've really tried to make this available to people, especially young people who need help in whatever way they prefer to engage. And the idea is that the hotline staff will help figure out what's going on and hopefully de-escalate the situation. Give some support, give some options to that youth for how they might respond in the circumstance that they're feeling. And if needed, as I mentioned, a mobile response is available in every county, again, 24/7, to go out to the home and help with that immediate situation. And finally, whether the caller got what they needed via the phone or text, or chat or in person, the FERS program will help connect them to ongoing support and help going forward. So it doesn't just end there, but we're also making sure that they're getting ongoing support the next day, when sort of things look a little different, the sun is up, they're able to go forward and get that help. I'll just say a key goal is to reduce calls to 911 or law enforcement, which we saw were increasing, and that was not what anybody wanted to see. We just felt like there was a better way to help youth and families resolve conflicts, preserve a placement, and really preserve the relationship between these individuals. And I'll say in foster care, people are often strangers to one another when that placement is first made. They need to figure out how to interact and how to live together. And that isn't always easy. And that's one of the reasons why FERS is there.
Thank you, Kathy. And I have one more question for you. How does FERS directly support youth?
Well, I think it's a great last question here. And I want everyone to think about the trauma and the uncertainty that come with potentially sudden involvement of the child protection system in someone's life. Even if you're placed into care with a relative, a grandparent, someone you know, it's going to be a scary time and unsettling. Caregivers are feeling out what the child or youth needs in that moment, what might be going on in their minds. They don't always share that. The child may be unsure how long they'll be there. They're missing their home, their parents, and their friends. Even in a situation where abuse and neglect has occurred in a home, children love their parents, and it's really traumatic to be separated from them. Without adequate support and services for family-based care, the foster youth are more likely to have unmet needs, misunderstandings can occur, and those things can escalate. And then they result in that call to 911, or perhaps a call even to the social worker to come and get the child and place them somewhere else. The youth, importantly with FERS, they don't need a clinical diagnosis. They don't need a mental health condition to get help through FERS. Of course, the hotline and the mobile teams are trained to handle pretty much any situation that they find. And that includes situations where behavioral health needs may arise, but the hotline is there for a variety of situations where help is needed. And the idea is to provide that support early on to avoid having a situation escalate to the point where the relationship between the youth and the caregiver just deteriorates beyond repair.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And our next question is for Elizabeth. Elizabeth, can you tell us about some of the barriers that individuals with IDD and their families, especially Latinx and other systemically underserved communities, face when accessing services?
Good morning, Senator Hurtado, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be here today, to be able to explain and give my experience on some of the barriers that affect my community on a daily basis. Of the nearly 400,000 individuals served by the regional center system, approximately 40% are Latinos, making it the largest group served. The regional center system and the process of obtaining services is not an easy process, especially for Latino families and other ethnic groups. I would like to address some of these barriers today, as well as to explain the importance of reforming the unfair hearing process as a means to eradicating roadblocks and disparities for underserved communities. I'd like to tell you that the Integrated Community Collaborative, through an organic and relationship-based outreach protocol supporting families peer-to-peer, has helped over 1,400 families and attended over 3,000 program plan meetings. I also have a 15-year-old son with Down syndrome who receives services by one of those the 21 regional center systems. These regional centers provide services using federal, state, and tax dollars for people with developmental disabilities such as autism, intellectual disabilities, cerebral palsy, and Down syndrome. The problem is that these services are not handed out equally. In fact, Latinos receive half the amount of services as white families do. African American and Asian families also face disparities. This institutional bias needs to be acknowledged and addressed. Not only do we receive less services, but we're also met with an overwhelming challenge every day to obtain the very little services that we do get. Bureaucracy and policy are held at higher importance by the regional center than the individuals themselves. We have well-documented data showing disparities, and they speak of some key barriers. We have a culture of no at IPP meetings and the inability to get a timely decision. We have a lack of oversight, lack of accountability, lack of empathy, and there's no sense of urgency. A system based on intimidation and retaliation. We have an overwhelming and complex system to navigate. We have language barriers. We have fear of the system, also lack of trust. There's lack of services. When your child is a school age, you're told that you need to find the services at the generic resources. When your child's an adult, you're told that you cannot get services because your child lives at home. We have technology issues, and the limited access to technology continues to be a big barrier for our community.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And how can changing the fair hearing process address these systemic disparities?
Thank you. So one of the reasons why families are struggling with the services, because when they get a service and is denied, the families find it very difficult, intimidating, and afraid to continue and file for an appeal. The system calls it the fair hearing process, but we just call them unfair hearings. This is where we see many roadblocks and discrimination against people who, in many cases, don't speak English, do not know how to navigate a complex system, or maybe don't even want to question authority because of their culture. I have sat on many of these unnecessary, complex, and intimidating hearings where parents, most of them monolingual Spanish speakers, are just doing the best they can, hoping that they can get some services for their children. The regional centers use taxpayer dollars to hire lawyers and legal representatives to fight families. The families, of course, can afford their own lawyers. In numerous cases, the administrative law judges treat families with disrespect and are biased against the families. And this is just unfair. Senator Hurtado, we're so grateful to you for authoring the Equitable Access to Service Act. Your bill will make a huge difference for underserved families. And here are some of the reasons why we're so excited about this. The bill makes the process a whole less formal and uses a different set of judges who are more familiar with appeals from individuals from social services system. The bill prevents regional centers from hiring attorneys at fair hearings unless the family has one also. The bill requires judges to get annual training on developmental disabilities law, as well as special training on the systemic racial and ethnic disparities in regional center expenditures. Even better, the trainings will be conducted by people with disabilities, by their family members. The bill requires more oversight from the state, including a review of every hearing decision by DDS and the establishment of an advisory committee that gives direct input to the hearing process. There's so many other features that we can mention this morning. I just firmly believe that this will level the playing field and reduce racial and ethnic disparities. And it gives our community the much needed access to justice, which right now is being denied. Thank you, Senator Hurtado. I really look forward to working with you in passing this bill.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And I'm just looking at some of the comments that are coming in from individuals that are listening in, and some of the comments. I'll share, with the audience what those comments are, just because I think it's important to give a voice to those that are making these comments. One of them says, "We are totally under control and oppression of all this system who take us to a hiring for a service." Oh, it just disappeared. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. But overall, the sense is that there's a frustration, a feeling unheard, that the process isn't fair. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done here in the state of California to make sure that we have a fair process, that people are being heard, and that we provide an opportunity to all families.
Thank you.
So thank you all for sharing with us the stories of those that these bills seek to help. At this moment, I'll open it up for any questions, if there are any. I think I see any. Would any of our guest speakers like to give any closing or final remarks?
Senator Hurtado, I'd just like to say that there are a lot of families listening this morning, and I know that they are behind this bill because they know that it may change their lives. So we're very grateful, and we know that you also understand what's happening in our community. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for joining us today, and I look forward to working with you in making sure that SB 1090, SB 1091 and SB 1092 all get implemented. Good bills that are going to be helping our most vulnerable communities here in the state of California. I look forward to working with you all, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Senator.
everyone. Thanks,
Thank you very
Senator.
much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.